Good afternoon, everyone. Today we have a new subject for us. Although we all are homeopath and we know that the importance of the mind and body, but this question is usually being asked by all of us and from our own circle and from the outsiders also. Friends, if someone asks you whether you are a mind or body, what is your reply? What is the reply? If someone asks us whether we are a mind or body, usually we don't say we are mind, we are body, we say I am such and such persons which have got both mind and body. And in spite of this understanding that we believe that they are the integral part of our life, mind and body, both are the integral part of our life, still this question is being raised during the practice, whether we should take the mental symptoms, whether we should take the physical symptoms. These questions are being raised every time. And for this, the problem is not that this question is coming up. Problem is that from where this question is arising. Because when we are seated with the patient and we get the mental symptoms and we don't get the physical symptoms, or when we get the physical symptoms and we don't get the mental symptoms, at that time we are perplexed whether it is sufficient or not. Friends, this is very important understanding that we have to understand. And this question of the integrated approach to the mind and body is not a new phenomena for homeopathy and for the entire civilizations. Right from the beginning, the concepts, there was a duality of concepts, several polarities were there, whether it is a unified aspect or different aspect or two other things. So I shall be considering this integrated approach to mind and body in the perspective of the historical understanding about the principles of individualizations and the principle of mind and body that has been taught and that has been discussed, and that has been subject of the controversy. What is the mind and body connections? Our thoughts, feeling, beliefs, and attitudes can positively or negatively affect our bodily functions, biological functions. Suppose we are worried, we are so much anxious. At that time, we feel that our appetite is lost. We become constipated. So simultaneous effect keeps on going. This is very, and when you give minute observations on these aspects, one finds that there is still there every time when things happen at mental level, it affects the body level, and when things happen at the body level, it affects the mental level. So this is not things that it is separate. They are the same things happening here and there. The mind and body are not separate units, but one integrated system. How we act and what we think, eat and feel are all related to our health. Physicians should be capable of teaching this behavior to the patient. Now, this question is not only for the selection of the medicines, it is also for making the patient aware. Because many a time, patient used to ask, such as that, Dr. Saab, this is happening, what to do. And at that time, no medicines is required. No medicines is required. And still, we feel that, and the patient actually they are the problem. So when we teach the patient, this is important because counseling is one of the important aspects that has to be carried on along with the medication. This is my understanding for this. Friends, all study in consciousness needs understanding on the material and mental realm. that what is there in the mind and what is there in the body, it needs the consciousness when we study in the consciousness. Among several theories, dualism and physicalism were the most discussed topics right from the beginning. Questions regarding the mind and body problems, how they interact, whether the mind and body differ not only in degree and nature but also in kind. These are the questions which is dwelling right from the beginning of the civilization. There are very many concepts developed, ancient concepts. Plato, human being is composed of body and soul. Body is nothing but a prison house into which soul has been locked. This is the Plato understanding. Person belongs to intelligible world and human being belongs to the sensible world. See that quite person belongs to the intelligible. Who is the person and who is the human being? So intelligible and sensible. Person can be transformed, whereas human being cannot be, because human being belongs to the physical level being. So we can transfer, we can transfer our mind, but body itself cannot transfer itself. It has to be transferred to the mind. A person, the subject of interest, is not a human being, but rather a soul, an entity distinct from that of the human being. This is important understandings that we all have to keep in mind. Then Aristotle, he spoke about a person is composite not of body and soul, but of prime matter and the human soul. Prime matter and the human soul, which is substantial form. He does not perceive the distinction between mind and body. Instead, he makes the distinction between matter and the form. This is the Aristotle concept. Aristotle understands body and soul as not the two complete beings in conflict with each other, being complement to each other. See, this word is very important, complement to each other. And some of the modern philosophers, an individual is part of the larger life of the mind. See the great difference. He says that mind or spirit passes through the dialectical stage of evolution, revealing itself as subjective mind, objective mind, and absolute mind. So now that we are dividing the mind as subjective mind, objective mind, and the absolute mind. The subjective mind expresses itself as soul, consciousness, and spirit. He gives importance to mind alone. He has absorbed totally the body into the mind. What truly exists for him is mind and not the body. So now the people are talking about like this, it is the mind and not the body. Then Immanuel Kant, great philosopher of his time and most controversial philosopher, he speaks about the metaphysical dualism rather than substantial dualism of the person. Metaphysical dualism at the metaphysics level. Human being is alone a rational being who has a will and free choice of action. He has a free choice of action. Kant postulates persons as a transcendental free beings, an idea that the inner self is not bound by the law of the nature. So now this is important. We are not bounded. The thoughts is like that. What is happening outside the nature, outside our body, and in the universal law, and we are not bounded by that because we have our own law, own principles for our life. So here the great difference between the earlier concepts. Then John Locke says, mind is the real person and body is only a possession. He separates mind from body and shows that body is only a material reality. Body is only a material reality. Every man has a property in his own person. This is nobody has any right to but himself. For him, mind is the real person and the real person is the body aspect is integrated totally into it. So what is there of the body? It is the mind and it is the body. They are all the same thing. Dualism. What is it? Dualism simply means a condition of being double. We are like that. It comes from the Latin word duo, means two, which denotes a state of two parts. It was originally coined to highlight the co-eternal binary position. For example, good and evil, body and mind, mental and material, dark and light is it. In philosophy, it is a worldview that the world consists of or is extricable as two fundamental entities such as body and the mind. From the point of theology, it speaks about the human being having two basic natures, the physical and the spiritual. Now there are two types of the dualism, substance dualism and the property dualism. Substance dualism and the property dualism. In Indian philosophy, Sankhya philosophy exists and that holds that there are two entities, namely the Prakriti and the Purus. Prakriti means the nature, we have the nature, and Purus means the body which is working here. And when we talk about the dualism, there are the substance dualism. The substance dualism sees the mind and body as two distinct and separate substance. We have already talked about the substance, the unitary aspects. Several philosophers like Plato, Thomas Aquinas, and René Descartes say to hold a similar view. They see mind as something that is diametrically opposing the body. The attribute of body is extension, but at the same time, they see that the body is passive, whereas the mind is thinking, active and free. Because mind can go anywhere. There is no limit. It can travel to anywhere, but body cannot move like that. It is like a cage. It is living inside the system. So this is the substantial view. And Platonic dualism. Plato accepts the two ultimate principles, namely body and the mind. Then his dualism is metaphysical in nature because he deals with the immortality of mind or soul. He calls mind as soul. For him, the mind is immortal and body is immortal. The mind is the one which differentiates the living from the dead. This is very important understanding that we have. Then property dualism. Property dualism maintains that mind is not only one kind of physical substance having physical or behavioral material functional properties, but also non-physical behavioral material. Functionally, it inimitable and irreducible property. It cannot be reduced beyond that. The advantage of property dualism over substance dualism is that it avoids the causal interactions problem. The theory has no need to continuous causal interaction between material and immaterial or spatial and non-spatial substance, since it admits only that there is only material substance. The theory of attributes. The first way to understand the property dualism is through Spinoza's theory of attributes. Attributes are part of Spinoza's metaphysics, the great philosopher. For Spinoza, God is the only substance. Since God's essence involves existence, he says that God exists, and moreover, Only God can fulfill the conditions for substance. Therefore, there can be only one substance, only the God. The true substance must be that which contains within itself, as part of its essence, the complete explanation of its nature and existence. By attribute, Spinoza understands is that the intellect perceives substance as constituting its essence. For him, the attribute of thought is attached to mind and extension of the body. Anomalous monanism. Now this is the singularity, monanism. Anomalous monanism is a philosophical thesis about the mind and body relationship. This theory has twofold division, namely mental and the physical. It is only mind or it is only body. It states that mental events are identical with the physical events. Events are causes in virtue of the property that they instantiate. Unless mental property and physical properties are also identified, question about the causal redundancy of the mental reappears at the level of the property. The causal claims and the relevant covering law cannot be formulated purely mental terms, because any mental event that causes a physical event must be characterizable in physical terms and therefore be physical. Then there is a non-reductive materialism. The proponent of non-reductive materialism holds that the mental is the ontologically part of the material world. Yet mental properties are causally efficacious without being reducible to the physical property. Even though the mind itself is really physical, our mentalist explanatory scheme is not reducible to physical, but is instead autonomous. Now let us come to our own master, Hahnemann. And he speaks about in his Organon of Medicines in different forms. Dr. Hahnemann in his Organon of Homeopathic Medicines described it as a dynamic, immaterial, spirit-like force that embodies the essence of life and all of its metabolic and functional activities. The vital force is a very important organizing force of life that directs your evolution towards the reaching to the full potential. In the second edition onward, Dr. Hahnemann didn't came to this spirituality right from the beginning. From second edition onward, Dr. Hahnemann got inclined towards the spirituality. He refers in many contexts of power of vital principle as it is the dynamism, the healing, healthy living instrument. Healthy living instrument. These are the words terms he has used. It is a spirit-like. It is the reign of the supreme sovereignty. If morbidly affected, it produces disease. With the right remedy, it achieves victory over the disease. Vital principle maintains the sensation and activities of all parts of living organism in a harmony that obliges wonderment. Without the body dies. Without it, the body dies. Now this is a point number 9, and what I said, this is the heart of the homeopathy. In the healthy condition of man, the spirit-like vital principle force, the dynamism that animates the material body, rules with unbounded sway and retains all the part of the organism. In admirable, harmonious, vital operations as regard to both sensation and function. Why? So that indwelling region gifted mind can freely employ this living healthy instrument for the higher purpose of the existence. So it is quite clear with the Hahnemann's thought for our medical practice, our homeopathic applicability, that the mind has got the supremacy over the physical body. The force represents both the physical and the metaphysical. The healing mechanism includes such as the immune system, endocrine system, which has connections to life itself, which includes the individual's unique human spirit and the willpower. It rules the whole person, mind, body, and spirit. The vital force is the essential concept to understand the painstakingly unique healing mechanism for each individual. The study of remedies is a form of perspective of altered human experience. Human experience are at physical and mental plane. Combined experience constitutes human experience. When we experience at the physical plane, we experience at the mental plane, and alone they cannot be termed as the human experience, but when they are unified, they constitute the human experience. Mental disease are now in a file 241. He has explained brief in very details in different files. The mental disease are to be cured in the same way as the other disease, by a remedy which shows by the symptoms its causes in the body and the mind of a healthy individual. A power of producing morbid state is similar as possible to the case of disease before us, and in no other way can they be cured. In 215, he writes, most mental and emotional disease are nothing more than corporeal disease. Now see the diversity. Mental and emotional disease are nothing more than the corporeal disease. The symptoms of the derangement of the mind and dispositions peculiar to each of them increase while the corporeal symptoms decline. So this is alternating state. Mind symptoms getting transferred onto physical body, and physical symptoms are getting transferred. When we are suffering from the mental problem, we have the less problem at the physical body, and when we have more problem at the physical body, we have less problem at the mental body. So intertransferable. In this point, he talks about the intertransferable nature of the mind and the body. 216, the cases are not rare in which so-called corporeal disease that threatens to be fatal, a separation of the lungs or the deterioration of some other important viscus or some other disease of acute character in childbirth, etc., becomes transformed into the insanity. He says that the mental symptoms the mental symptoms are getting transformed into the physical symptoms are getting transformed into the mental symptoms. The affections of the grosser corporeal organ transferred conducted to the almost spiritual, mental, and emotional organ, which the anatomists have never yet and never will reach to this with his scalpel. No surgeon can cure this type of the mental sickness. No medicines can cure until we understand this Hahnemannian concept of the disease. In 220, he writes, by adding to this the state of the mind and dispositions accurately observed by the patient's friend and by the physician himself, we have thus constructed the complete picture of the disease. Homeopathic cures of the disease by medicines capable of producing strikingly similar symptoms, and especially an analogous disorder of the mind, must be sought for among the antisoric remedy if the physical disease have already lasted some time. So he has talked in a varied way. Dr. Hahnemann has talked in a varied way. He has given importance, individual importance to the mind, individual importance to the body, and then the combined importance. This is a practical approach that we have. In many a type of the patients, we are getting only the mental disease, physical disease, but everywhere the concern is the completeness of the totality of the symptoms. So homeopathy is wholly capable of satisfying the therapeutic demand of this age better than any other system or school of the medicine. This is the observations that we can get from all other system of the medicines, which are limited, have got the limitations. Homeopathy has got the widerness, and it is open to the different methodology that is incorporated into the organ of the medicine. So thank you very much for listening, for your patience listening. If you can have any questions, you can find me at risdt@gmail.com or on the WhatsApp number 94310206222. And you can call me, or you can ask Dr.